Well, 5 years ago, my daughter was diagnosed with gluten intolerance, and that kind of started our pathway down the Weston A. Price Road, which then kind of snowballed into, finding holistic or food ways to help with illness. So anyway, and then about 4 years ago, my husband and my oldest daughter was infected by a intestinal parasite. And we didn't know it was an intestinal parasite until we went in, and that was about a week after severe diarrhea. And so when we went in, we were told that we would just have to let it run its course. They could give us antibiotics, but it was called cyclospora. It went around several years ago on the lettuce. So anyway, they said the diarrhea could last 2 to 3 more weeks, and my husband was not able to work. That's how bad the diarrhea was, so that's just not an option. So I was talking to one of my friends, and she was actually the original friend that introduced me to Weston A. Price. And she said, well, here, call this herbalist and just see. And in the past, I had thought maybe about herbs, but never really looked into it. And so I called the herbalist and had a phone consult with her. And she, the thing that's different about Western medicine and herbs is that, or herbalists in general, is that you can go into them and say, I have diarrhea, this. And they're not going to tell you exactly what you have, but they're going to say this involves your intestinal system. And so what happened was she had several tinctures that she sold me, and she shipped to me, and they couldn't get to my house fast enough. And on her protocol, within 24 hours, the diarrhea was gone. And I mean, we're talking about diarrhea so bad that we had a bucket and the toilet and the rock, paper, scissors. Who's going to get which one? So that was impressive. 24 hours it was gone, and within 6 days, completely gone. Energy level was back. There wasn't any side effects whatsoever. It was just gone. So anyway, obviously I was sold after that on herbs because just witnessing that sort of transformation and healing through herbs. So I decided I was going to start researching. And I researched. And the more that I researched, I realized that God is absolutely amazing, and He created herbs for every illness or ailment on this planet. It's just absolutely amazing. Anything from cancer to diarrhea to the flu. And there's herbs to help with your eyesight. There's all this sort of things. And He created food for the same purposes, and it's very healing on both levels. So I bought a ton of books, and I brought them with me today. If you have to leave early, on the back of your outline there is a stapled list with the book list there. If you can stay, if you have time, I'm going to pass the herbal books around. But because we have so much information to cover, I'm going to hold back the books until the end. Okay, so then we're going to dive right in. Today we're going to discuss the types of tinctures and how to make them. We're going to talk about my top 6 herbal tinctures to have on hand for illness. And we're going to talk about kitchen herbs that you're going to want to have on hand to go along with your medicinal tincture. Tincture is a very concentrated liquid extract of a medicinal herb. So I don't know if any of you guys have ever made your own homemade vanilla. Same concept. You're basically making a vodka tincture there. So why make a tincture? Well, although the herbalist was very helpful, for 2 people for a 1-week protocol, it was almost $400 worth of tinctures. So it's extremely expensive. It does work, but it's extremely expensive. And so I knew that in order to continue an herbal aspect of healing in my family, I was going to have to learn how to make my own. And there's tons of resources out there on how to make your own. But for instance, a bottle of echinacea, this is actually from there. It's filled with mine now. But this size of echinacea from an herbalist is $37. But to make this size of tincture, it's $11.75. And that's including the bottle and the fancy dropper. So it doesn't include the paper for the front, but that's not very much. So obviously it's a big cost savings if you can educate yourself on herbs, big cost savings, and you have it on hand, which is really important. So anyway, there are many different solvents to use when you're extracting medicinal properties, but there's 3 main ones, and the 3 main solvents are vodka, glycerin, and apple cider vinegar. Vodka is the most effective when it comes to extracting medicinal properties, and it's the most widely used. I used to use it. I switched over to glycerin because I have young children, And to me, it bothered me, although if you take a dose every 3 to 4 hours, the most you're going to get is maybe a half to 1 teaspoon of vodka. So it's not that much, but on some of these herbs, I give my children them more often, and so it concerned me that they were going to have that much vodka in their system. So, but vodka is widely used, and it's amazing because it has an endless shelf life, they say. In the olden days, people used to pass their tinctures down to their kids. So it was like, you're getting married, here, have some of our stuff we've made. It was a blessing, because people knew how to make it. So when you're selecting vodka, what you're looking for is either 80 proof or 100 proof vodka. And that's important because when you're making a tincture, you're trying to stay to a 60-40 ratio of water content in the entire jar. So again, that was 100% or 80 proof vodka. Gin, brandies, or rums, if you like that more.
What about corn alcohol?
As long as it is 80 to 100% proof. Yep. The second solvent is glycerin. I'm going to show you guys how to make a glycerin right today with glycerin, so you know how to go home and do it yourself. It's very simple. What is glycerin? It's this big old thing. I bought it in a gallon jug because I make a lot. Okay, so there's your glycerin. And it's sweet tasting, but it does not affect your blood sugar, which I think is absolutely amazing. So it's 100% safe for diabetics to use. What it actually is when your body consumes fats, it's broken down into fatty acid and glycerin. And so your body, recognizes it's a normal thing. Glycerin is the second best at extracting medicinal properties, so not as good as vodka, but still great. And the shelf life is only 2 to 3 years. Some of the tinctures I brought with me today are, this whole year will be the second year, going to the third. So probably going to start making some new ones for next winter. And then it's very important when you're buying your glycerin to know what source it came from, because glycerin is made from coconut oil, palm oil, soy, and corn oil. And this is your medicine that you're putting in your body. So it's very important that you make sure that you're getting something that's non-GMO and organic, so your body's not taking on those pesticides or genetically modified stuff as you're trying to heal yourself. Yes, honey.
I have a question. Can you select which it is derived from when you purchase?
If you buy, on your outline, there's actually a list of 3 websites to buy herbs and stuff like glycerin from. All of those carry good glycerin.
Well, they say it's derived from coconut.
The one that is from Bulk Herb Store, it says it's derived from palm oil.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you specify it.
Yeah. Now, if a source does not specify, do not buy from there, because the dangerous thing is that glycerin can also be a byproduct of biodiesel engineering. You don't want that in your body, so just make sure you know your sources, so you're not poisoning yourself. This specific one I bought from Bulk Herb Store. They did switch their labels though since I bought it, but it's from Bulk Herb Store. And they usually have free shipping on theirs. I think it's $30 or $40 for an entire gallon, which lasts you a long time, and free shipping. But then also take another note is that the third resource down, the very last one that I typed up there, that one sells it. If you know a whole bunch of people who want it, they sell it by like drums. So you have to know a lot of people, but they sell it in huge quantities.
Is the shelf life on this or after it's made into a tincture?
After it's made into a tincture, it's 2 to 3 years. This is good as long as you keep it away from light in a cool place. Don't leave it in your car. Otherwise it stays good for
Cool dark.
a long time. So,
Okay.
vinegar with so then I don't make them. The reason why I don't make apple cider vinegar tinctures is because they only last a year. And when you're buying a whole bunch of herbs to make, dry herbs like this only are good for a year. So after you get your herbs, you have 1 year to make this entire package. And so usually I do a huge batch all at once, and so I'm not going to use that much even with 4 children in a whole year. But it's the same process making an apple cider vinegar tincture as it is making a vodka tincture. It's the same, really easy. And you would obviously want to use organic raw apple cider vinegar for that. Some people who don't want to do vodka for religious reasons and don't want to do glycerin because they think it tastes too sweet, opt for the vinegar. So there's no right or wrong. Okay, so we are going to make a tincture now. So I don't know if anyone figured it out yet, but stevia, liquid stevia is actually a tincture. And I make my own. And the reason why I make my own is because this big 8-ounce bag cost me, let's see if I wrote it down. I didn't write it down. Anyway, to make a tincture that filled this, let's see, this jar up was $2 for liquid stevia. And it is, you know, dark colored because it's right from the leaf. So there's no processing. It's not the clear stuff. It's not. So anyway, I make my own stevia and it's really cheap. So tools you're going to need to make a tincture. For a vodka tincture, you're just going to need a jar. Some vodka, which I don't have. Sorry, just pretend. Some vodka. And your tincture. And your herbs. So all you're going to do is so simple. This would be for a vinegar or a vodka tincture. Whoops. Is you're going to take your herb. I'm not actually going to do it on this one, so just bear with me. You're going to just dump it in here. And because it's a dry herb, we're going to go to the halfway mark on any container. If you have this size, you're going to go here. Halfway up, whatever jar. If you have a gallon-sized jar, you're going to half a gallon. Fill it halfway up. And then because it's a dry herb, you're going to add some water. And I'll show you more about this process in just a minute, so don't get overwhelmed. And then all you're going to do is pour your vodka on top, put the lid on, come back in 6 weeks. That's it. And then after, yep, what's that?
Will you tell us how much we pour on it?
You fill the vodka all the way to the top.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mix it, stir it, or?
You can shake it. Sometimes, like roots and leaves have an issue. Kind of, you want to make sure the vodka gets all the way through. So just shake it and then walk away for 6 weeks. And then when you come back, you're just going to use a cheesecloth. Just drain. This is dirty. It's stained from my other tinctures. Anyway, just drain the solids out. Okay, and you're going to catch the liquids into your jar, and that's your tincture. I store all of my bulk tinctures in canning jars in the dark. And then I pay the money for these because they're not very expensive. These are like $1.75 a piece, which is amazing. And you also want to make sure when you're buying these, you can get these from both Bulk Herb Store and Mountain Rose Herbs, which are on your outline there. When you're buying these, make sure that you pay the extra money for the glass dropper. If you end up using vodka, you don't want plastic sitting in there for the rest of your life, because it's your medicine. But they sell all different sorts of sizes. This is a 4-ounce size, this is a 2-ounce size. And they even sell an 8-ounce size, which is ginormous. So now I'm going to show you how to make a glycerite, because it's a little bit different, but it's done in 3 days, which I think is amazing. So all you're going to need is a crock pot. Any crock pot, this is like probably older than me. Crock pot, any crock pot. And you need a little bit of water, and you need dry herbs from somewhere, and flour sack towel, and a washcloth you don't care about, and a jar. That's all you need. So what we're going to do, once again, same process, because this is a dry herb, it's the same process. So I'm just going to fill this jar up to the halfway mark. And it doesn't have to be exact, so don't get out your ruler or anything. Just
Are you making stevia? Is that what you're
I'm
making?
making stevia right now, yeah. You can taste it. It's very sweet over here. It's very sweet. Stevia is so powerful. I can taste it in my mouth. Here, tastes like a dessert. Okay. Stevia. So there you go. It's roughly half, okay? And then we're going to add a little bit of water. This is filtered water, also very important. This is your medicine. You want to make sure you're using filtered water. No chlorine, fluoride, okay? And all I'm going to do, and this once again, it's not an exact science. We're trying to moisten the herbs. And as you're adding the water, the goal is to moisten them and then tip the jar and have just a little bit. I'm going to put the lid on and shake it up a little bit. You just want a little bit of water draining off. You don't want like a tablespoon, that's too much. So you're going to shake it. so now what I'm seeing is everything, well, almost everything's moistened. You want them just moist. All the way through. And this just kind of like preps the herbs for the glycerin to come in and extract out the medicinal properties of the herb itself. Or in this case, your sweetener. Okay, so you probably can't see this from here, but it's just moist. It looks like ground up feed for a cow or something. Okay, it's just really, it's moist. Or maybe it's feed that the cow's already eaten. But anyway, it's moist. So now I'm going to take my glycerin. And I'm just going to go all the way to the top of this. And glycerin is really thick. It's like almost, well, if you get maple syrup out of a tree, it's like that consistency after it's been cooked a little bit. And I'm just going to tap the jar on the table. And what this is doing is it's releasing air bubbles. I don't know if you guys can see or not. It's releasing air bubbles to the top because you want to make sure it gets incorporated all the way down to the bottom. Okay. We're just going to keep adding glycerin. It's just going to keep on doing its like little bubbly thing. It's like burping itself here. Go to the top again. Good.
So what did this say?
Okay, so that's about right. I just go to the 1-inch headspace if you guys can. You know what that is, just the bottom rim here with glycerin. Try to get as close as you can. If you get it a little bit too deep, the worst case scenario is it will overflow into your crock pot. But you still have a usable tincture. So now I'm going to put the lid on and I'm going to shake it. I just want to make sure those herbs get all mixed up. A lot of times they'll stick to the bottom of the jar and you want to make sure you get the glycerin all the way down in there. There. So they're not sticking anymore. Okay, so now what you do is you take a crock pot and you take your washcloth you don't care about. I'll move this way. There you go. Okay. And you stick it on the bottom and you put your glycerin right in there. And you're going to fill this crock pot half full with water. And you're going to want to use filtered water again because it is going to have access to your herbs in the inside. So half full, up to halfway mark here on your jar. So if you're doing quart-sized jars, which I don't think you can in a crock pot, but let's say you have a really big crock pot that I've never seen before, halfway up the side of your jar, okay? Put your lid on, and you want to do low for 3 days. And when I say 3 days, I mean stick a piece of tape on the top of your crock pot that says done at such and such a time. Okay. Every crock pot is different. This crock pot's really old. And its low is actually too high for this. So I just like to leave the lid kind of cracked. And ways you can tell it's too high is that you'll walk into the room that it's doing its thing in, and it'll smell like someone has burned like grass or something. Depends on what you're making. Like if you're making elderberry, it's going to smell like burned fruit. So that's no good. You've cooked the medicinal properties right out. So the goal is just to keep it warm. We're just trying to keep it warm for 3 days.
How much water in the crock pot?
You're going to the halfway mark on whichever size jar you're using.
Okay.
So this one's going to be here, a quart. I've never seen a crock pot be able to hold a quart,
Right.
but it would be, to the halfway mark on that. And the reason why you're sticking the washcloth on the bottom is because if the jar sits directly on the bottom of a heated surface, it's likely to shatter. So it's kind of your barrier between extreme heat and your glass. And then, after you've done your 3 days thing, you're like, wow, it is exactly noon. Okay, you get your next jar out. And this is elderberry, which I love. So I'm gonna show you how to do it. It's gonna be a messy thing, but here we go. That's why I have newspaper. So on goes this. And just kind of push it down a little bit there. And I smell it, and it smells so good. Okay. You're dumping everything in here. This is a berry, so it's going to act a little bit different than a leaf form, meaning a lot of times the leaves absorb more of the glycerin, so you're probably going to have to squeeze the cloth in order to get all of the juice out.
So where'd you get your elderberries?
I have elderberry bushes.
Oh,
I have 4 of them.
that's awesome.
And I was actually going to say, I was going to mention when I talked about elderberries, but I'll mention it now. I'm going to be doing cutlings off of them, which would be if you have the spot to put them. I've been selling them for about a month now. So I'm selling them, you get 2 plants for $20, and $10 of that goes to Weston Price. So if anyone's interested, you can write me out a check and I'll cut you some and we'll get some going.
How long does it take before they produce?
The first year you'll get nothing, it's like a little stick. Second year you get berries. And they can get 10 foot wide and 10 foot tall. So this is a big bush. Although when they grow elderberry commercially, they cut it down to the ground every year and it only gets like this tall. So just depends on what. But I got, oh my goodness, I probably got 10 to 15 gallons of berries this year. So I mean, and this, I've had them going for about 4 years. So every year you get them. So I'm just bringing the corners up and we're just gonna get all the liquid out. If you do a vodka tincture, it's going to be really thin, like this one is. Okay, it's just going to kind of like run right on out, like water. And if you're making a glycerite, it's going to be thick, so don't be alarmed. That's your glycerin, it's thick. It's just fine. As long as you didn't burn it and it doesn't smell like somebody who doesn't know how to cook, you're good. If you don't have room for an elderberry tree, Bulk Herb Store and Mountain Rose Herbs, there's websites on your resource sheet there, do sell elderberries. They're about $9 for a half pound.
So they're dried?
They are dried.
And so it doesn't change its effectiveness?
They dry them, both Bulk Herb Store and Mountain Rose Herbs both dry all of their herbs at low enough temperatures to still be considered raw. So it doesn't take any of the medicinal qualities out. Also, the entire Mountain Rose Herbs website is 100% organic, whereas Bulk Herb Store is not, so you really have to make sure you read on their website. Anyway, sorry, I'm just going to milk this out, juice in this case, but this is your tincture. So from here, you can buy glass bottles, and pour it right into there, and your extra can just stay in the jar. If this was actually a tincture, it would have a shelf life. It's juice, so it's going to go home and go in my fridge. We put it in our morning smoothies, just as an antiviral. But that's all there is to making this one. And then, like I said, the vinegar is the same process as a vodka. So you're just going to fill your jar up with herbs and vinegar and shake it and let it sit for 6 weeks. The differences in herbs, though, you should make a note as you're ordering, is when it comes to making a tincture with a dry herb, we go halfway. If you happen to learn enough about herbs, where you're extremely amazing, and you can go out in the wild and find these herbs that have not been sprayed by pesticides, or you know the source, and you're using fresh ones, then you take the herb all the way to the top. Okay?
And no water.
And no water. And then also, one other thing to note as you're ordering, which I suspect a lot of you will be, leaves don't weigh very much. So when they say 8 ounces, it's not by volume, it's by weight. So this could probably go almost, let's see, probably make 4 tinctures for people around this room. And it's only 8 ounces. Whereas like echinacea root's way more, so you're not going to get as much. So that might, if you get like a 4 ounce, that might be just enough for you. So just make a note of that, because when I first got into herbs, I ordered a pound of everything. This is only 8 ounces, all the way to the top. So I've had to throw some of them out, and it's kind of heartbreaking because it's been more than a year, and I was like, well, I gave some away to people, and eventually you just have to make the judgment call to get rid of them, because they're not going to be have very many medicinal qualities left. You can store it in mason jars, and then I have these awesome little thingies, and I store them, these tincture bottles. They go in my medicine cabinet, and that's awesome because it's ready to go. And when I have 4 kids that are all suffering from something, it's easy to say, line up. You know, you just unscrew it and drop it all into their mouths, and then have a backup in a dark place. And then, let's see, when you're buying the bottles, make sure that they're amber colored. That protects your tincture from the outside world, basically. Sunlight really depletes the medicinal qualities of a tincture very, very quickly. So make sure you're paying for amber bottles. Okay, so then the next question is, how do we use this? We've made it. How do we use it? Basically, the best way to take a tincture, and it doesn't always work with kids, but my 7-year-old and my 5-year-old can accomplish this, is underneath your tongue, you have big veins that are running through your tongue, okay? And if you look at the human body, that is the closest source of blood to the direct outside world. And so when you're taking tinctures, it goes underneath your tongue, and you count for 30 seconds. And the reason why is because that allows the medicinal properties enough time to get into your blood supply through the underside of your tongue. Then you just swallow it. Like I said, my 2-year-old, obviously, we can't count to 20 or 30 on that one, but it's good schooling to count to 30 while you have something in your mouth. So my 2 older ones do it. And then as far as dosage, I typed out the dosage on your outlines, and those are strictly for cold and flu type immune boosting herb, okay? And the reason why I say that is because, I did type it on there, right? Anyway, I can tell it works because when it comes to immune system now, we're talking immune system herbs only here. I can tell it works because within 20 to 30 minutes, I can feel my lymphatic system right through here draining. You can feel it, I can feel it anyway, filling up, and so it's obviously carrying stuff out. And so it's really just about listening to your body, but within 20 to 30 minutes, you should notice a difference when you're taking herbs. Some sort of difference within that time frame. Let's see. And I already talked to you guys about the importance of starting early, and that's just like due to the viral load. You just want to make sure that you're on top of it and you're helping your immune system right away. Not that they won't work after you've gotten really sick, but it's always beneficial, but you're most likely going to get the full-blown cold regardless. At least the symptoms of it might be a little over your head, but I'm going to try and talk slow. So tinctures work with your body's natural immune defense to fight against illness. Immune system tinctures boost your immune system by signaling the body to increase fighter cell production, give vitality to the cells, and some tinctures have antiviral and antibacterial properties. And then one thing to not overlook is diet is extremely important when you're taking these. You can't go to Dairy Queen or through the drive-thru and have a mainly junk diet and expect these to work at full force. Okay, we have to be mindful of what we're putting in our body, which is why the Weston A. Price Foundation diet, the nutrients-dense type of diet recommendations are amazing because the nutrient-dense recommendations are also boosting your immune system and feeding your immune system on a regular basis so that you can fight the stuff that's kind of going around in the community. Before it even starts, you may not get it. But if you do, you've got herbs. Just depends on how close you get to the people who are ill, and washing hands are factors and all that sort of thing. So I'm going to list off factors that impact your immune system as far as food is concerned. That if you are following the Weston A. Price Foundation's recommendations for diet, you are getting all of this in your diet already. So factors that impact the immune system are vitamin A and C deficiencies. And why that affects it is because it fuels your antiviral defenses. True common sources of vitamin A are cod liver oil, fish and shellfish, liver, butter, and egg yolks from pasture-fed animals. True sources of vitamin C are fruits and vegetables, certain organ meats, and also an amazing fruit from the Amazon called camu. That's spelled C-A-M-U space C-A-M-U. It's a fruit that comes from a tree. It's extremely high in vitamin C. And also rose hips. Rose hips are amazing. They're really high in vitamin C. They have 20 times the amount of vitamin C of an orange. And the reason why vitamin C is so important to your immune system is because during a viral or a bacterial attack, your body needs 50 times the amount of vitamin C during that time. So vitamin C is crucial when you're trying to fight something. And they also say that you should have That's why it's important to have a Weston A. Price diet, is because you want to make sure your vitamin C levels are up there before you get a hit, you know, for something attacks your body. The next thing that affects our immune system is vitamin D deficiency. And the reason why that's really important is because it protects against cancers and illness, just general illness. It's hand in hand with your immune system. True sources, again, are cod liver oil, lard, shellfish, butterfat, organ meats, and egg yolks from grass-fed pastured animals. The third thing is really, really huge. And I didn't realize how huge it was until I was prepping for this, because it's an organic food too. Food additives. So you have these cells called macrophages in your system, and those are your first line of defense when it comes to illness. You have them in your gut, you have them in your liver, all over your body, you have them on your skin. And the reason why they are important is because they're the first ones to get attacked, and then they make something called interferon. And what interferon does is it travels to the next cells in line and says, hey guys, we're under attack. We need to amp some stuff up here. And then those cells signal to make your white cells, and your body starts fighting, okay? And why this is linked to food additives is because there's a food additive called carrageen. Is that how you pronounce it? I think so. Carrageen. And that is an organic food. It is in your processed foods, so make sure you read your labels. It's used as a thickener in our food supply. And the unfortunate thing about carrageen is that it completely kills your macrophages. So if you are consuming a lot of food that has carrageen in it, your macrophages are at an extremely low level, which means your cells are being directly attacked by these viruses, and they have no warning whatsoever. So you tend to be more ill when you're eating more processed foods. So it's used as a thickener, so things like cream of chicken soup, cream of mushroom soup, those are things where they have to thicken it before they package it. That's what that's in. And then of course, another thing that's been linked to low macrophages are like pesticides, herbicides, and then when they actually did do DDT, that was linked back to affecting people's macrophages. I can't overstress. That affects your immune system is sugar consumption. Sugar isn't everything, so read your labels. Sugar disables the immune system, and the way it works is that when sugar is processed by the body, it's glucose, okay? And the glucose molecule is very, very similar to vitamin C. And so your body is under attack, and your cells are grasping for vitamin C, and they see a molecular structure that looks a lot like vitamin C, and they grab it. But see, the sugar doesn't feed the cell, okay? Vitamin C feeds the cell. So that cell starts getting weak and weak and weak. And so that's why it's really important, especially when you're fighting off something, sugar-free. You know, make some stevia that you can use while you're sick. But yeah, that will go a long way to helping when you're sick. So the last topic is my top 6 medicinal tinctures here. Elderberry is my number 1. I love elderberry. These are all cold and flu, okay? So there's other herbs and medicinal tinctures that are my favorites that are not immune boosting related. So number 1 is echinacea. Elderberry. Elderberry is my favorite plant because it's literally medicinal from the top down. Everything from the berries to the flowers to the bark to the leaves, everything in this plant is medicinal. It's awesome. But another reason why I love it is because it's high in vitamin C. So there's for your immune system, okay? It's high in beta-carotene and antioxidants. So it's an awesome little thing to be taking. We take it every day. Like I said, I have my own elderberry plants, and I make my own elderberry juice. And the recommended dose of elderberry juice every day is 1 tablespoon. So we do like morning smoothies, and so I just throw it in there, and the kids can't even tell it's in there. It actually tastes really good. But another amazing thing about elderberry is it's antiviral and anti-inflammatory. Nearly all illnesses are something to do with anti-inflammatory. So some people take elderberry to help with sinus pain, but it's amazing antiviral. Next on the list is echinacea. And echinacea, a lot of people know what echinacea is. They sell it, at CVS or whatever. But it helps to build the immune system's strength and fight off disease and infection by increasing the number of white blood cells in your system. It's mullein, and if I ever had to say I'd want to snuggle up to a herb, it would be mullein, because it has saved me. Mullein and lobelia, which are the next two, has saved me as a mother sleep so much. Mullein is amazing. It grows here wild everywhere. It's actually a noxious weed in the state of South Dakota. Mullein is amazing because it's just like Mucinex. If any of you guys have taken Mucinex. So you take it, and within 30 minutes, that cough that just continues, that you can't get anything out, and it's like you can feel the congestions, but nothing's coming, it comes up. It just helps you expel that mucus. It's just an amazing thing. And you can use it for bronchial congestion, chest colds, allergies, anything that involves your respiratory system. And the other one that I love that saved me a lot of sleepless nights is lobelia. Lobelia is used for a wide variety of things. Midwives use it during birth, but I've used it then too, but I use it on a regular basis for the lungs when you have a dry cough. You know, when your kid's up at night and you know, nothing's coming up and they can't sleep and you're like, oh my gosh, I just need some sleep. Okay, so lobelia is amazing because what it does is you take it and it dilates your bronchial tubes. So your body says, okay, we don't have to be spasming constantly. We can calm down, and then a lot of times people take the mullein along with the lobelia because they can work hand in hand. You get your dilation of your bronchial tubes, then you take your mullein and the mucus is able to come up. But I have used lobelia also for seasonal allergies. If you're wheezing, people with asthma use it because it just dilates your bronchial tubes. And people use it for whooping cough and other illnesses that involve, you know, the respiratory system. And you'll know why after I tell you. Astragalus root is amazing. I just came across this probably 2 or 3 years ago. And why it's amazing is because it's used to shorten the immune response rates when your cells are communicating together. It makes that signal go faster, and it tells your body to produce white cells now. It's just like it's a whole system, a system that relates back to your cellular vitality and your macrophages, and it's just like you're going to be under attack. So take this, you know, here it is. Take it. Use the medicinal stuff and start making white cells. And I also combine that tincture now on a regular basis with rose hips. Because as I told you guys already, rose hips are, you know, really high in vitamin C, 20 times the amount of vitamin C as in an orange. So it's just an amazing thing to have in any tincture. I mean, you could put it with elderberry, you could put it with echinacea, it's a food. But that would be another source of vitamin C. The one last thing I have, if you're not going to do all this, is there is an amazing product. And I buy it on bulk herb store, and I do not do a winter without it. And this is like a must. I hope they never stop carrying it. But it's called Double E Immune Booster, and they sell it in a tea, okay? But you can also take the same mix and do the same process I showed you here and have a tincture. And why it's amazing is because it has like echinacea, elderberries, rose hips, all that sort of thing, and it's a combo package. And if you buy all the ingredients individually and make tinctures, it does not come out cheaper than what they're charging. So every year we make sure we have this on hand. And this stuff, you take it every hour at the first sign of illness. And so that's why my husband carries this on the construction site in his little tool bag. The men usually tease him, but you know, the first sign, I mean, he's at work. You know, how are you going to take tinctures while you're at work? So that's what he does. He does it every hour. All the rest of the herbs, except for elderberry. Elderberry we usually do every hour too, just because it's a food, you can't overdose. But the other herbs that I listed, the recommended dose is every 3 to 4 hours on those.
And what was the last one called? Double what?
Oh, sorry, Double E Immune Booster. Yeah.
It's on the back. Oh. Or is that what? Yeah, that's later.
Our kitchen herbs. So God is amazing, and God created like amazing foods too that are amazing with your immune system. And the reason why you want to take them is because They are antiviral, they are antibacterial. And so as you're consuming these and they're going down into your gut where your virus originates usually, it's killing off those viruses. So it may not feed your cells and it may not boost your immunity, but it is going in there and it is wiping out whatever virus or bacteria you have in there. So it's also helping, just in a different way. So the two things that are really important are onions and garlic. And the most important thing is that you consume them raw. I know it's like hard to swallow literally, but like for instance garlic, you go out and get a garlic clove and you peel it and you chop it into capsule-sized chunks. And there's no way of getting around it. You're going to smell like a pizzeria, but 2 cloves a day, you're going to feel amazing, okay? So and you just swallow them down with water, and usually I eat something right after or right before, because sometimes your stomach can get a little iffy on that one.
Did you say you put it in a capsule?
No, I just chop it down to capsule
yeah.
sizes, yeah, yep. And then down the throat it goes. Yeah.
I just started, I saw a little video on that with the garlic. I don't know if you say they made a tincture using garlic and honey. And so I cut my garlic in half, but I left it, the garlic floats to the top, and so I flip it over, and of course honey is thick in that.
Right.
And after about 3 days, when I flipped it over, it was more watery, and you could see kind of bubbling. And so now after I got to that point, I keep it in the refrigerator, but I've started using that.
Right. And you can do that too. You can also do another process where you take a pot with honey in it and you just lightly simmer on the stove at a very, very low temperature. It takes like over an hour, but you can do it that way too if you can't stomach swallowing them. But the best way to get it is to swallow them because you're going to get all of it. And then as far as garlic and onions go, they lose their medicinal properties really quickly. So actually the logistics of making a tincture with them is a no-go. By the time you get it made, even if you use vodka, so it's still considered raw, it just doesn't, for some reason, it just doesn't last. God designed it to be right there for you. The last one that's not technically a food, but is absolutely amazing, and it's on your list, is activated charcoal. And the reason why that's amazing is because when you're dealing with vomiting, diarrhea, it stops it. And the reason why is because you consume the activated charcoal, it goes through your system. Usually they say, they have different directions for whoever you buy it from, but you mix it with water. It's disgusting, I'm just going to say it is, but it works, okay? So you feel like you're going to throw up, you do it anyway. And what ends up happening is you down it, and then let's say you're fighting the flu. What happens is that activated charcoal goes into your stomach, and it absorbs the virus and carries it out. Now, if it's already in your stomach, you're most likely going to throw it back up. And the advisement after that is you take more, because the virus is already in your stomach. And you just keep, if you keep throwing up, it's not very pleasant. It's not. But the purpose of doing it is activated charcoal does carry it all the way through and out. And so that virus gets absorbed and carried out your body one way or the other, shall we say. And I've fought flus, food poisoning, if we ate it somewhere and it's not so good. But we usually take it, again, very important, first sign of my stomach might not be doing so well. And usually you can fight off all of that. So it's worked out really, really good for our family.
How much do you mix in the water?
Usually it's like half a teaspoon. My kids can't do half a teaspoon. I've actually gotten it in kids with applesauce, as long as you don't let them see it. Because activated charcoal is black. So it's like, what is this, you know? I've also used like 100% fruit juice. You're going to have your fruit sugars in that, but just make sure it doesn't have any. One of these, I'm using a glass dropper. And it's not scientific, so if you're into measuring things exactly, don't do this. But you're just going to go like this, and this is 1/4 of a teaspoon. It's 1 dropper full. And then when they say dropper full, they don't mean all the way up here, obviously. Just however much comes up when you squeeze it is 1/4 of a teaspoon.
The difference between making the elderberry juice and the elderberry tincture.
The juice only lasts 2 weeks in your fridge.
I mean, what's the process difference?
Oh, the elderberries, you just take elderberries and you, these ones were frozen because I've had to pick them over the last 4 months. So I just take frozen elderberries and you stick them on your stove, extremely low heat, and 1/4 cup of water. And you just leave them there. I think they were on there for like 3 hours this morning.
And
I was
that
up early.
produces the juice or the
Yep.
tincture?
Nope, it produces the juice.
How do you produce the tincture then?
The tincture is
How do you do
like the same process I just showed you here. You just take a jar, and if you have dry herbs, then you're going halfway, and these were actual elderberries. So you would go all the way to the top, and then you add either your vodka or your glycerin to it. And if it's glycerin, you'd shake it and you'd stick it into the crock pot on low for 3 days. And if it's vodka or apple cider vinegar, you'd shake it and leave it on the counter. So if you're gonna get into herbs, I like rarely ever loan this out. It's amazing. And it's on your book resource list. It's the Rosemary Gladstar's Medicinal Herbs, a Beginner's Guide. And I love this book because, so many reasons. They show you pictures of the herbs, okay, what they look like in the ground, so you can identify them. This is basic herbs. This is herbs and stuff that you should have in your kitchen at all times. Then, they should tell you, it's not very long, but like a brief summary on how to grow them, and then how to use them. And this book teaches you how to make tinctures. It goes through detail of what I showed you today with glycerin and vodka and apple cider vinegar. It teaches you how to make teas. It teaches you how to make salves. An amazing book. Amazing, 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 amazing. So that's the first one. Amazon has almost all of these, just in case you're trying to take note. This is my other resource, and I have never lent this out. My brother gifted this to me on my birthday when I first started herbs. And it is called Today's Herbal Health, the Essential Reference Guide. And I love it so much because in the back you can look up respiratory system. And it lists off all the herbs that you could use for your respiratory system. Or, let's say you're like, what does rhubarb do? Whole section on rhubarb. What does rosemary do? Whole section on that. It tells you all the medicinal properties of it. It tells you how they used to use it in the olden days. It tells you all sorts of things. And then at the very end of the description, it tells you primary applications and secondary applications as far as like for rosemary, primary is cancer, headaches, indigestion, pelvic and uterine pain, et cetera, okay? So it lists off everything in here. It's just so much information, which is why I've never lent it out because I love it so much.
What's the name of that book?
It is the Total Herbal Health book. It's the second one down on your list. Okay, the third in line, and I have lent this one out because I'm not as attached. But this one is called Homegrown Herbs, and I haven't really, you can kind of tell while you're holding it that I haven't read it a lot. But it is all about, in detail, I mean, really good detail, how to grow your own, even how to design your own medicinal herb garden, okay? So if you're into that and you want to know how to grow your herbs, it's also a really amazing resource. That's the third one down on your list, I think. These two I'm going to do at the same time because, once again, I haven't really broke the cover on either one. I have used them, just not as much as the first two. I ordered these right in the beginning. They also teach you how to make tinctures, and they teach you how to make teas, salves, tonics, syrups. And this one I just opened here, and here's a skin wash recipe, you know, all the way down to your household stuff. And the Rosemary Gladstar's Herbal Recipes book also does the same thing. She's got like lotion recipes in here and all sorts of stuff. It's amazing. Everything you can use herbs for. But both of these I don't use very much because I'm a mom of 4 kids and I don't have a ton of time. So I did this and I use these when I go to make stuff like lotions and stuff. Also amazing. I don't feel like it's as in-depth as the first two that I passed around and the one about growing, but they try to combine it all into a book, and it's like not even as thick as either one of those two. So it's not going to cover as much as owning 2 books in one. But this one's Grow It, Heal It. Once again, how to grow herbs and what you could use it for, all in this resource. And the last book, I used a ton because I've had 4 kids. And this one's The Wise Woman's Herbal Herbs During the Childbearing Year. It goes over everything, how to support you when you're having a baby. So that one's an amazing one too. And then also, if you're curious, I did bring, because I just got it in the mail, Mountain Rose Herbs catalog for all their stuff, all their dry herbs. I'll pass this around too, but this is gonna have a full list of everything they sell and how much it is. But you can also get on their website, because they have it right on there how much it is too, and whether or not it's in stock.
Do you have shipping?
Then bulk herb store does. So if you can find your stuff and you're only gonna order a few items, bulk herb store is amazing. If you're gonna put in a big order, Mountain Rose Herbs is the way to go. They just have more on hand, they have a more vast selection of herbs. So.
Are they supposed to be all like organic wise?
The Mountain Rose Herbs is 100% organic on their website. Yep. So, and their powders that they sell, I make my own vitamin green mix that's made out of herbs for my family. We use it as a multivitamin. And all of the powders that they sell are all dried at low enough temperatures to be still considered raw. So that's another thing you have to watch when you're buying herbs is, has this been dried at 150 degrees?
Right.
So.
I don't know, did you, I don't need to have the conversation.
You're okay, go ahead.
Did you guys, or have you read that with the alcohol tinctures? That they can be dehydrating?
I have found that they can be dehydrating when I take them. Ever since we switched to glycerin, it seems like when we take them every hour, we're not as thirsty.
Yep.
We switched to glycerin just because I have kids. And like the elderberry tinctures, we take them every hour when we're getting sick. That's just a lot of vodka in a kid, in my opinion. As for my children, that's my choice. So yeah, I'd have to say yes. Yeah, even when you're sticking it in your mouth, it's burning, and you're standing there trying to count to 30, and you can almost feel it, your mouth get kind of cottony as you're waiting to swallow it. But not that it's not beneficial,
So you
it's still
can't
beneficial.
heat it up and burn off the alcohol.
What you can do is you can make a tea and allow your tea to cool down about halfway, where you can drink it but it still be a little bit on the hot side. And you can go ahead and put your tincture right into there, and as long as it's still steaming, the alcohol can come right off.
After 2 minutes.
Yeah, you can smell it. You can sit there, not that you'd want to smell alcohol vapors, but you can smell it coming off of your tea.
Okay, cool.
I used to do it that way before I learned how to make a glycerite with the kids, just because it was easy to put it in their juice. But then the problem I had with that was that, well, number one, the juice was warmed up, which is kind of nasty. And the second issue we had was they didn't finish the cup. And so I had no way to tell how much have my children gotten. And I wanted to make sure that I wasn't overdosing them, and I wanted to make sure they were getting the correct dose when they needed it. Because they would take their little sippy cup and sip on it all day, and that only has one dose in it, so. That's why I started doing it this way. Yeah.
Crystal, do you also give them, say, elderberry all the time, so it's a maintenance thing?
I do the elderberry juice all the time. In the first book especially that I'm passing around, yeah, that one right there. That one goes into how to make syrups and all sorts of stuff. Last year I made an elderberry syrup. It was just honey and elderberries that have been simmered at a really low heat. And then you strain the berries off, same way I showed you, and then you store it to the fridge. And last year we took just a spoonful every day. But this is the most powerful daily form. It is just the juice. Because it's not watered down by vodka, it's not watered down by glycerin or any of the other solvents. It's direct juice from the actual berry. They both have really high antioxidants, you can tell by the color. But the elderberry itself is the one that has medicinal properties. It's antiviral, and the good thing about taking it is you can go through and wipe out that virus and help your body out that way. So, also, like elderberry flowers, I mentioned, those are amazing. Those can be used for cough, and they can induce sweating. Like if you have a fever and your body's trying to detox something, out come the elderberry flowers. It's just an amazing plant. It was one of the first ones I learned about, and I just love it. That's why I bought 4 and grew them, and now they're gigantic.
Do they propagate or do they stay pretty well contained?
Oh no, they get up to 10 feet wide. Yeah.
But do they
And then
send out
if they
shoots?
set out their little babies, and those get 10 feet wide. So it's a massive thing.
It's a
massive.
commitment.
It's a gigantic, yeah. If you have an extremely small yard, it's not, that would be your yard. You would have a yard of elderberry. Yep. We're good? Awesome.
Wow, thank you.
Ton of information, sorry guys, I have